This video will show you how to make graphs and charts accessible in Excel. First of all, it's worth understanding how graphs and charts are presented. The table that I've used in my summary sheet is constructed in such a way that all of the information is in cells in the Excel worksheet. That means that they can be navigated using arrow keys, basically using the keyboard. A graph or a chart is in what we call the floating layer. This is very much like the floating layer in Word, and the floating layer is not automatically accessible to screen readers. So it's really important that any information that's in a graph or a chart is also visible on the page and is in cells so that a screen reader can access it. There are a few other pointers in terms of accessibility of graphs and charts. The first is that whilst they are useful visual tools, they must be labelled as fully as possible. So this one has a title, it has axes that are labelled, and it has a legend. It also has the numbers visible for each bar of the bar chart. We're going to go to the next sheet. I've added in a sheet called Graphs. And on this sheet, I've just extracted a little bit of the data here. I want to make a pie chart to show this information. So first of all, I've highlighted my data. I'm going to go to the Insert menu and I'm going to select Pie Chart. And I just want a basic 2D pie chart. I'll move it around later. When you create your chart, there are some buttons on the right. So we have chart elements. Let's click on that. So we do want a chart title. That menu can be expanded so that you can change where you put your title, but for now I'll leave it there. Data labels enable the data to be viewed on the chart. So if I hover over it, the numbers appear. So I'm going to tick that, and I want those. There's a reason why I'm doing this, which will become clear later. I want those on the outside. And I want a legend. I may get rid of that later because I'm going to format the colours. So first of all, I want to amend my title. I can click on it with my mouse and then double or triple click to highlight all of the text. And I'm going to call it Summary of Dragon Test Results. So now my pie chart has a title. One of the criteria for accessibility is that information should not require the user to perceive colour. So information can't rely on colour alone. Now, unfortunately for this, at the moment it does, because the pass, fail, not applicable and not tested legend require the user to see the difference between colours. If a user was colourblind or if a user had low vision, that would be really difficult. So one way that we can get round this is to add in pattern as well. So I'm going to click on the pie chart. One click means that the whole pie chart is highlighted. I'm now going to click again on one section, and now only that section is highlighted. I'm going to right click and go to Format Data Point. That brings up a format menu on my left. I'm going to click on the first icon, which is Fill and Line. The first thing I want to do is change the border of that. I want to give it a black border with a solid line. Then I want to go into Pattern Fill. And at the moment, all of the patterns look white. That's because the foreground and the background colour are white. I'm going to change the background colour to a dark blue. Actually, I quite like that. I'm going to leave that with the dotted blue. Next, I'm going to go into one of the segments that's adjacent to it, and again, I want the border to be a solid line, and I want a pattern fill. This time I'm going to choose a completely different colour and a different pattern. And I think for this one, I'm going to choose a diagonal stripe. I'm going to do the same for the next segment. So first of all, I'm going to give it a solid line for the border. Then I'm going to choose a pattern. I'm going to give that pattern a background colour. Let's go with maybe green or purple. Let's have purple. And a foreground colour that's white. And I'm going to change that to a completely different pattern. So I'm making sure that my colours are very different and the pattern is also quite different. I'm playing with the patterns because I want a pattern that's definitely different to the dotted and the striped patterns. So I can play around, have a good look at how each of them behaves. Once I'm happy with that, I can close it. Now, what I really want is for these data labels to have the name in as well. So I'm going to go into my data labels. And I'm going to change that to, I want for the whole thing. I'm going to change that to data callout. You'll notice that on the data callout, it also puts the name of the category, so not tested, pass, fail, etc. I'm just going to make it all a little bit bigger as well and move it around. Okay, so I could now, if I want to, amend other parts of it. I'm not happy that the border for these labels is very clear, so I'm going to click on each one. I'm going to go into my format menu. I want them to have a black outline and I want it to be a little bit heavier. That's better. I'm going to move the title because at the moment it's sort of crashing with the rest. So I'm going to highlight it, make sure it's highlighted on its own, and then I'm going to drag it across here. There's better. So I want that title to be somewhere where it's not clashing with the other information. I also then want to change the font size of the labels because they're not big enough. I'm going to make those font size 12. So for each of those, I'm going to into the label, double clicking and changing the font size. Okay, so now I'm happy with those. What I do notice is that the legend now at the bottom is unnecessary. That's not going to be very helpful. So I want to go into my chart design and I'm going to remove the legend. Like that. And then finally, I want to put a border box around the whole thing. All of these things are just personal preferences. I'm going to make that quite thick. There we go. So now I have a pie chart that doesn't rely on the use of colour alone. It's got labels, it's got a title. The data is here in the cells from A3 to B6. So a screen reader user can access the data. However, they might not know what the percentages are, so I'm going to now provide some alt text. Now, normally you would provide alt text by right-clicking and edit alt text. The problem is, rather like floating objects in Word, the floating object itself is not accessible to screen readers, so putting the alt text there is pointless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my alt text in a cell. And I'm going to put it underneath the chart so that sighted people won't see it, but a screen reader can access it. So I'm going to take the text that I've prepared and I'm going to pop it in cell D3. I need to format that so that it wraps. Now that's made all the data move. The reason for that is that the column is so narrow. So let's make the column much wider. Let's give it 40 and then double click there. It says pie chart with 4 segments showing that 54% of the tests passed, 6% failed, 34% were not applicable and 6% were not tested. Now I'm going to drag my pie chart on top of that so that it's not visible. And I'm going to update my cell A1 information. So that says this sheet provides a pie chart summary of your Dragon testing results. The data is in cells A3 to B6. Alternate text for screen readers is in cell D3. Okay. So now I've got my information in cell A1 to help orient users. The data is here on the left. My pie chart is visible for those who are able to see, but it doesn't rely purely on colour. And the alt text is sitting there beneath it, not visible, but screen readers can access it. So that's how you can make a pie chart or any kind of graph or chart accessible.